welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen. With me today is the effervescent Bridget D. This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. And once again, I have to start with an apology. Janine, I haven't created that intro with you in it yet.
Oh, it's okay. It's all right. I'm really relaxed. You guys can hear me okay, right?
We hear you
Yes.
just fine.
I'm really having super duper technical difficulties. I've been a little bit like DTS, and when I'm DTS, nothing works. Like nothing.
Isn't that
Well,
the truth?
I'll give you something that worked for me, because I went through a time about 2 years ago where I was having, of course, I'm an IT guy, so I have a background solving computer problems. I was having one problem after another, continuous, not just my own, my wife, my sister, everybody, friends were calling me with problems and so forth. And I finally realized I was focusing on the problems.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I started focusing on solutions, and they just went away like that.
Oh, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Like here I am on my phone, old school style, because my computer, which I used earlier today, all of a sudden decided, nope, we're not going to show this. So
So
I
your
am.
phone is a solution today. It's not a problem. It's a solution.
Yep. That's
There we
it.
go.
That's
Gotta
it.
be. Gotta be.
So that's the good news. So how you guys doing? Bridge, how you doing? What's
I'm
happening?
amazing. I'm here with you guys. I'm doing amazing.
Well,
Yeah.
hey, you can't do better than that.
Yes.
That's really
Yeah.
good.
Yep. Yep. I'm feeling better now. I've been having like this little, again, it's a whole DTS kind of down feeling, like maybe I'm coming down with something or a headache. See, look, even
My world is spinning. Oh my.
It's okay. We're going with the flow today.
yeah. And I'm like, I don't want to miss this show today. So, doing everything to make myself a little happier. And I'm so glad to see both of you and to be able to speak to everyone today.
We're glad to see you too. And by the way, you guys, you've just started teaming with me. You guys already have a fan club.
Really?
You do.
Exciting.
And Janine is somebody is from Taya Boot Camp, Deborah Wilson.
Oh,
She
really?
wrote in. Yeah.
Oh, super.
And let me read you what she had to say. She says, wow, what a dynamic duo Janine and Bridget make. Love the show and wonderful contributions all around. And in reference to the conversation we had a week or two ago, to the chap who was asking about leaving his job to follow his passion, I would also add the caveat to, as Abraham always says, to find appreciation for where you are first. Otherwise, you will attract more of the same. I didn't have time to listen right through till the end, so it's possible you guys mentioned this too. If I may make so bold as to suggest that, as he is in that place, it might well be helpful for him to listen to a Taya Talks episode that David, Anne Marie, and I recorded yesterday. Now, this is about 2 weeks ago that she wrote this, about money, as David talks directly to this theme and, of course, gives excellent advice. And I have to say, those Taya Talks are pretty good, the Taya podcasts.
For sure.
Oh, and I'm not sure if it was you that suggested this, but as you know, I did mirror work as you recommended. It's so highly, and I thought if you could get over yourself, so could I. I found it massively helpful and a great precursor to boot camp. I used the free Louise Hay 21-day course available online, along with a great mirror work exercise by Sandra Rollis, which can be found on YouTube. I love how Taya is so present on the LOA Today airways. Bridget is so ready for boot camp. Oh, my goodness. They both, and of course, you knock it out of the park. I believe that's the appropriate Americanism. With love and much appreciation, as always, Deborah. So your first fan email, guys. How about that?
That is
She's awesome. She's such a wordsmith, too. I mean, she has a way with words that I just can't even wrap my head around. And I think I remember saying something, I think that was like 2 weeks ago, when we were talking about leaving a job or leaving the jobs and stuff. And I think that I remember mentioning something about that we can't leave in that same energy that we were there in, or it's just going to follow us. You're just going to go from one yucky job to another, right?
Right.
So, right. The idea is to appreciate where we're at, see where we're at, and know that, of course, we're going to want different, right? We're going to want different, but we can't leave with that same chip on our shoulder, or we're going to bring that wherever we go.
Yeah. And like you said, it's okay to want something different.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Not only is it okay, it's good.
Yeah.
That's part of why we're here.
Right.
To keep desiring and attracting and bringing in and enjoying and attract the next thing and desire and over and over again.
Go after what you want.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good stuff. So Yeah, life happens, and when it happens, it can happen pretty strong. I've been experiencing a lot of that lately. It's been kind of a rocky boat, but a combination of working in the Tire Boot Camp and what I've been doing myself over the years, including getting back to mirror exercises. Boy, oh boy, that I don't know why I left that behind, but I did, and I got back to it, and all of a sudden that righted a lot of my boat, so that was a good thing. But that combination has gotten me through some pretty crazy times lately, and if I look at it from the source perspective, which of course is the Taya method, I find that things really are working out well. Things really are going good. I'll give you an example. I've got this software package that I have a developer creating for me for this business idea I have for a group that I have, a Facebook group. And he's been working on it since May. And there have been trials and tribulations along the way. It was supposed to be a 2-week project, turned into a 3-month project. But yesterday we submitted it to Facebook for approval. I mean, that's a huge breakthrough right there.
You have so much going on. When do you sleep?
Seriously,
it's
this is a valid question.
When do you live? I mean, do you? I know that every once in a while you shut down and you go to the beach, but
yep. And that's part of it. And the other part of it is remembering to live through the rest of it. Mm-hmm. That's what I've been really cognizant of lately. For instance, yesterday I went out and took one of my daily walks, and it was a good day. It was a beautiful day. Just idyllic. Perfect temperatures, blue sky, nice cool breeze, all that kind of stuff. And I was just cruising right along and so forth. But I was stressing. Wait a minute. Why am I stressing? It's such a beautiful day. I don't understand. Why am I stressing? And so I stopped for a moment to ask myself why I was stressing, and immediately everything got better. I said, oh, I'm rushing through the beautiful day. That's why I'm stressing. So I slowed way down, took a nice little stroll through this beautiful weather, and everything changed. My whole perspective changed. The way I felt about everything changed. And that whatever that phantom menace was that I was rushing back to never appeared. It wasn't there at all.
When you said that the other day, I was like, I've done the same thing so many times. And I'm like, wait a second, why am I not enjoying this walk? This is the whole reason I take this walk. Something's weird. Like, what's up? And I was like, you're just simply not literally looking around and enjoying what you normally do. Like, that was literally it. When you said that, I was like, done that.
Well, it's not living in the moment, really, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not really being present.
Basically.
Because, when we're always thinking about the next thing, that's not being in our bodies. It's not being in the moment. So, yeah.
And it ties in directly to what Josephine in the live stream set up a question for us. So we have a question to address, and it's right in this topic that we're on right now. She says, my question of the day, many say circumstances do not matter when manifesting. So what's your advice on ignoring/overriding circumstances when manifesting something that seems impossible? And she gives an example. She says, for instance, wanting to manifest something, i.e. a relationship or a certain movie, doing well financially in the current COVID crisis, which of course is right in the same ballpark as what you were talking about before the show, Janine. So we have a nice, easy segue into that conversation.
Yes, we do, don't we?
So who wants to take a first swing at this one?
Well, I don't think anything is impossible, first off. I don't think we should ever limit ourselves on what we can do. That's what I would say, first and foremost.
That's true. Yeah.
Would you mind reading the first question again?
Yeah, let's put that back.
I can't see it on my phone here.
Yeah, it says, my question of the day, many say circumstances do not matter when manifesting. So what's your advice on ignoring/overriding circumstances when manifesting something that seems impossible?
Well, I mean, it almost sounds to me like the question is like a conscious one, like how do we consciously manifest? And that's the first thing that struck me about that is we just kind of forget about the manifestation part, right? I mean, it's sort of kind of out of our control, if like hands-on anyway, right? But I would say that we find something to appreciate at the moment, right? We need to find something to, as what we're learning in Taya and in just the LOA, circles, find something else to focus on, find something else to appreciate. And for me, sometimes if I'm kind of DTS, it's so much easier for me to go and help someone else. like go and sit and talk to my mother for a while, just or go and help my grandmother, go and just, that works for me, but whatever works for you. It's like pleasant distraction. I mean, we're not talking like complete bypass. We're not talking about like kind of what I'm doing a little bit in the Taya where I'm at with my modules and Taya. I'm like, oh, I got to work on that. You know what? It's a nice day. Let's go on a walk. Okay.
Right.
So
and there's nothing wrong with that. That's perfectly acceptable.
Because sometimes we come back and it's like, oh, now I'm in a better mindset to do that. Right. So instead of the focus being on we have to or what we want, let's focus on, because let's face it, there's a lot of things, COVID, the news, we were talking a little bit about Afghanistan and there's just so much out there that is competing for our emotional bandwidth, right?
Yeah.
And so we need to find a way to focus on something else.
That's good. I think that's true. Well, you mentioned Taya and you mentioned DTS, which of course stands for down the spiral, meaning you're in a negative vibe space. But any of those situations, the Taya teaching is ultimately to try to find ways of appreciating the thing that you're not liking, which is a really, really challenging thing to do. But what it usually involves is it's not that you have to like that somebody is beating you over the head. That's not the thing you're supposed to appreciate, but rather it's appreciating other things about the situation, finding what else that's going on with whatever's happening or what a person is doing or what a person is saying or whatever it might be, that is your good side. That's the side I like. If you can find stuff that you can say, yeah, I appreciate that part of it, then in Taya Talk, you start detuning whatever this thing is. You start reducing the impact that it has on your life. And it is a skill. It's a skill that takes some learning. That's why there's this Taya boot camp David Strickle offers that Janine and I are both in, that Debbie was saying Bridge is so ready for, but that's completely up to her, of course. But the strength of taking a Taya boot camp type course, which is kind of what it is, it's sort of a course coaching situation, is that you really focus in on learning things like how do you appreciate transgressors, as they're called? How do you appreciate the stuff that's driving you nuts? And when you can start learning to do that and quote detuning it unquote, then all of a sudden it's not so much about trying to find a way to ignore or override circumstances.
Exactly.
You actually end up finding ways to appreciate the circumstances. And the first time you do it, you tell me if this is true, Janine, this was my experience. The first time you do it, you blow yourself away. Like, oh my God, I actually did it.
Well, it's funny because I think probably a lot of us who are in this sort of world have been doing this ever since we can remember, right? I mean, like, let me ask you, Bridge, what about, because the author of that question, Cheryl?
Josie,
sorry. How did I get that? She mentioned COVID. So Bridge, if I can ask you, what can you appreciate? What can you tell us that you appreciate about COVID?
A lot. I got so much time with my husband.
Okay.
That I didn't have before because of work. I was furloughed, so I had so much time with him. I had more time, whether it was just going over here and there when we felt safer to my immediate family's house, and that's it. And just taking everything, like Walt said, slower and actually appreciating it, whether it's your walk or you're taking a shower. Like, I would rush throughout my whole morning, even though I'd get up at 4:30. Like, I would rush through everything and not appreciate things because I was on my way to go do X, Y, and Z, to go to the rat race, to go to work, to go do. So I wasn't enjoying the littlest, simplest things. And it sounds dumb, but you can enjoy your shower and your coffee.
Yeah.
And it was like I wasn't even enjoying those things because it was like, man, what's next? Like, what else?
So it's like being present.
Do?
It's like being able to really be present.
Yeah.
In the situation. So, I mean, that's a perfect example that we're not saying we're really happy that COVID happened or wow. No. But I mean, the way sometimes I can even come across to the people I know and I care about is just, wow, that was a really cool thing because I was able to get this and this and this done. And like, I start to look a little wonky to people, but they sort of miss the point that it's not that I'm happy that COVID happened, but I'm really happy that all of I'm appreciative of all of these things that came out of it for me.
Yeah, there were
And
a
there are
lot of
lots of them.
silver linings.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
tons of them. There are so many.
Right.
When-
And that's you know, and even though, I'm sorry, Walt, even though
No,
in
it's
that
all right.
current in that current moment of whatever we're going through, we might not be able to appreciate it because our emotions are just too high and at that moment. But if we step back, and it
Yes.
could be like when you said taking a shower, or when we're taking a walk, or you know, if you lose someone, which you know, I because I work with people who lose people, who people who transition or pass away, you know, wow, I remember the thing they said to me before they passed away. That was, you know, that's a little highlight that they can hold on to. So every situation, no matter how dire, has some nugget of expansion in it that can help all of us. But it's just, we have to be receptive to it. And
Yeah. Oh yeah.
and when we're upset, it's hard to get to be high enough, you know, right? Because we have to be high enough up our emotional spiral. We have to be above a neutral. I don't want to go too far into that, but I mean, we if we're all depressed, and we can't normally find the nuggets, and you know that. That's
Yeah, sure. Because it's always
Yeah.
easier to vibrate to the thing you want when you're high vibe.
Mhm.
I mean, unless the thing that you want is low vibe, which is true. A lot of people want low vibe stuff, but nevertheless, unless that's really what you want, most of the time, it's going to be easier to vibrate to it when you're high vibe, just because you want it.
Right.
There's also a lot of, like Rich was saying, there's a ton of things associated with COVID that have been good, really good silver linings. One of the ones that is fascinating to me, because I've always been interested in politics and economics and society-wide stuff. And economically, there are huge shifts, I think, for the better that are happening. And they happened, the impetus behind them was COVID. The first one that comes to my mind is everybody who worked in an office was kicked out of the office, and most of them ended up working from home. Unexpected. Well, I shouldn't say unexpected. For society, it was unexpected that what came out of that is now a whole bunch of people want to work from home. In fact, they're demanding it. And some of the companies are having to threaten people with, you know, they're cutting their salaries or something if they don't come back to the office because they want to come back to the office. And the people are pushing back, saying, hey, look, you need me in my job. I'm good at it. You want me? I got to work from home. That's a completely different dynamic. And I think it's a healthy dynamic.
Well, in some business, sorry.
Not that there's anything wrong with working in an office. I'm not suggesting that. But there are a lot of people who do better when they're working from home. That's just because of who they are. Doesn't mean that everybody would do better, but some people do better. Another example, people who work in the service industry, people who work, you know, minimum wage jobs and so forth, were in extreme high demand at the peak of the COVID crisis last year. And they were actually in many ways putting their lives on the line, but in terms of what they were doing. And it got to the point where a lot of them said, enough of this. There are people who are on unemployment who are taking more home than I am because of all the government stimuluses, where I'm continuing to work at minimum wage and put my life on the line. Why am I continuing to do that? So they won't take the jobs anymore. So now all of a sudden employers, well, the way it gets reported in the news is, well, restaurants can't hire enough people anymore. Well, more precisely, some restaurants are refusing to pay what they actually have to pay in order to get the people to come back to work. What this is doing is it's doing something that a lot of people look to government to do, but now it's just happening naturally. It's raising wages. It's raising what people get paid. And it's all happened because of COVID. So yeah, COVID certainly has a negative side, but that's a big plus for a lot of people. That's a huge plus. That's going to impact a lot of lives in a very, very positive way. So yeah, there's just two examples. And I can think of a lot of them. I mean, what we're doing here, we are now recording on StreamYard, or Zoom, where there are all these different virtual channels out there for connecting and communicating. That has been huge during COVID. People who were not able to connect otherwise were connecting online. So now there's this huge online trend, massive trend, to connect with each other virtually. Would that have happened without COVID? Probably over time, but not to the degree that it's happened. Now it's become really, really big. And then to add on to that, to kind of pile on, because people are able to connect, they're able to help themselves, but by the same token, they also recognize and remember what it's like to connect in person. So now they're valuing that higher than they did when they were actually connecting in person. So there's another example of how something better has come out of COVID. and you can just go, you could be listing this all day long. So,
yeah,
you know,
it's about change.
Change happens all the
It's
time.
about change, and it's about these events that happen. And there I go again, rocking the world.
It's okay, we love it.
Around and around she goes.
But yeah, I mean, but then there's also the question of what are we choosing to also pay attention, put our attention on too, because are we I'm not saying that there's there's definitely sadness that comes from losing people, right? But are we paying attention, using the COVID again, to the COVID deaths, or are we paying attention to the other things that are going on, the positive things that are going on with it? And I suppose this is a good time for me to, like what we talked about before, Walt, about, yesterday my husband's like, honey, come here, let me show you this video. And he wanted me he showed me the video of in Kabul, with people trying to leave the airport, and I was able to watch it, and it didn't bring me down, but I had to question him, like, honey, why do you think that was important for me to pay my attention to? And his response was, because it's not all joy and love and light in the world. And I said, okay, I get that. But, to me, it was just I don't need to see videos of carjackings to know that goes on. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need to see, I don't even need to see cat videos, cute kitten videos. Okay. It's just not really my thing. I don't sit around my computer watching this stuff, and I appreciate him but it's almost like, well, here, I've got to bring you back down to earth. And it's like, no, it's not about kittens and rainbows. It's about what we focus on and what we want to appreciate. And so I know that this is going on. I know, in fact, I even told him that report's wrong. There was 7 people who passed away, not 5. So I already, but I don't have to watch it, right? I don't have to, I can give it this amount of attention instead of, 15 minutes of watching it. So,
Well, you make a good point too. It changes every 2 seconds also. So.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's it too. And again, what do you want to focus on? You can acknowledge and move on. I acknowledge that this is going on in the news. Because I'm one of those, I suppose I'm one of those people who really truly believe that we don't really, being news savvy isn't like, unless you're going to go on like, wait, don't tell me. It's like, it's the game show on NPR, like what's that going to do? We're not having cocktail parties.
And even on that game show, you don't actually win anything if you win. So
right.
What's the
point? It's like, to me, it's like a cursory, and this is true. It seems like for my entire family, like, Janine, you seem to be in this state of bliss all the time. Don't you know what's going on in the world?
What's wrong with you? How dare you be happy?
That's really hard for people to really understand, that you can acknowledge what's going on in the world, but not put all of your focus on that.
There are lots of ways to deal with that. I have to admit, if I'm in kind of a semi-combative mood, I'll come back on an answer like that, on a question like that. They're questioning why, how can you be so happy in the midst of everything that's going on? I'll come back to them and say, well, how can you be so sad? It's an equally valid question. And of course, they don't want that. They want to focus on how can you be so happy? So we'll try to flip it back there, and I'll flip it right back to them. Like, if you get to ask the question, I get to ask the question.
Well, and like Abraham, I'm just going to go to Abraham. Like Abraham would say that there is no amount of my sadness that's going to make any of these other situations better. Right.
In fact, it's likely to help contribute to continue it, to keep it going, to perpetuate it.
Yep. We know there's enough negativity in this world to keep it going by. I don't have to add anything to it.
Not really. No.
Yeah.
As I've like saying in the past, there is no negativity shortage.
Absolutely.
It's just not here.
What about you? What about you, Bridge? How do you feel about all of this? I mean, do you find yourself getting sucked into current event? No, she's like,
I like to be like informed, but I do not want to be like inundated. Like I don't need to watch the videos like you. Like if I know it's going on, I know it's going on. I don't need to watch it or read about it or have it on my TV like 30 times a day. I'm not going to do that. So I have like my news app, and I'll go through that so I could pick what stories I want to read, and the rest I do not have to.
right.
So yeah.
I was thinking
I care to be informed, but I don't need to see all, like you said. If I know it's going on, me being upset about something is not going to make something else better over there.
I was thinking of another way to respond to somebody like your husband who's presenting something like that and doing it with proviso. It's important for you to have your feet back on the ground and realize that there's real pain going on in the world. My question to him in direct response to that could also be, why is that important?
Well, and that's exactly what I would say, because and his response is because you have to know that this is going on.
And my question becomes, why do I have to know that?
Right. Like, because
you're just repeating the same thing over and over again. Tell me something new.
Well, and that's just
where's the value in this that you're trying to show me that there's value? And I'm not saying that there isn't value. I think there is. I just want to know what you think the value is, because so far you haven't told me what the value is. You've just kept repeating the same thing over and over again.
Well, and it's almost, in a way, when people are like this, it's almost like, how dare you, like you said, how dare you be happy in the midst of all of this pain and suffering? And it's just, we're human. We're gonna have pain and suffering in our lives, and these are experiences, right? These are experiences that we're having, and my knowing how, the fall of, which in my opinion was the fall of Afghanistan was just inevitable. Mm-hmm. I don't know, maybe I'll get a lot of hate mail for that. I don't know. But I mean, it's just like, it's almost like, there's been no country that's been able to go in there to help anybody out. It's like, maybe let's see what's going to happen. Let's see how they're going to do it. Let's see how they're going to do their own country. And I'm curious about that,
Mm-hmm. I'm reminded of a Far Side cartoon, an old Far Side cartoon from many years ago, when you talked about how dare you be happy. It's the first image that flashed into my mind was this one frame cartoon, and it shows a picture of hell, and there's flames all over the place, and there are these two figures in devil costumes walking along a parapet, kind of surveying the scene. They're like the supervisors, you can tell, of everything that's going on in hell. And in hell, there's this guy pushing a broom, and he's whistling with this big smile on his face. And the two devils look at him, they look at each other and say, we're not getting through to this guy.
That's good. That's really good. I like that. At the end of the day, we're all going to die.
Mm-hmm.
We're all going to die. It's like, as far as I know, I have the moment. I have right now, I have this moment. How do I want to spend this moment? And there have been times where I have changed my mind about going out and or going on a trip or whatever, just because I just changed my mind. If I go and do this trip, or if I go and do this, even this restaurant, if I'm not in the mood for the restaurant, I will just shut that down. I'm like, sorry, I'm not going. Have fun. Because I know that the way I feel about that, I will take that feeling with me, and I will not have a good experience. So I just more and more, and I'm finding this just more and more, that I'm not okay with just being okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not I'm just not okay with just accepting the same old, the way things have been happening. What about you, Bridge? How's life with you? I mean, how are you?
Do you mean more in a people pleaser aspect? Like, what do you mean?
Well, it's a little bit all of it, right? I mean, because if we're willing to say, no, I don't want to do that, we're willing to piss somebody off because we just, so it's people pleasing. It's just focusing on what feels right for us.
Yeah, I definitely just go off of how I feel now. And I used to go places or do things to make other people happy, as opposed to now I definitely do more of what feels, like you said, what feels good for me. If it doesn't feel good for me, why would I go and ruin my time, your time, or try and put on a good face for somebody else? Like, I'm not doing the people pleasing thing anymore. No one ever thought I was one, but I'm telling you, I was for a little bit there. I swear. And
me too.
Not anymore,
me
man.
too.
I mean, you gotta live for you.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta live for you. And because if you're not happy and your cup is not full, like we always say, you are not going to fill anyone else's as much as you want to, or even just want to be joyous in your joyous state. Like I always want to be happy. I know you can't always be that way, but I always want to be that way. So, you know.
And isn't it interesting when you do try to live for somebody else? I'm not recommending it at all. But if you do try to live for somebody else, they never live happily.
Nope.
Yeah, you can't make anybody happy. If somebody doesn't want it, it's like a drug addict. If somebody doesn't want the help or want a certain thing, yeah, you can do anything you want.
The most you'll ever get as a reaction will be, it won't be a reaction. It'll be more like, well, yeah, that's what I expected. That was expected of you. That's it.
Yes. And this just brings to mind my kids, you know, no, you will go here because you're going to have fun, and I'm going to make you do this. And Mom, I'm not interested. It doesn't matter if you're interested, you know. And it's just like, my gosh, all the hammering, all the hitting my head up against the wall that I used to do, because this is the way I feel like things should be. And wow, the happiness comes really when you just say, that's it. I'm, you know, and of course I take other people's, you know, if my husband and I want to go, if he really wants to go to this restaurant, and I'm like, okay, I don't, you know, either which way, it doesn't really matter to me. But if I'm absolutely, look, I do not want that food, I do not feel good about going, then I just can't, you know, I just can't. I mean, of course, that's a small, but there's even been like vacation.
Well, it's small, but it's not all that small, because what is the other kind of behavior that usually replaces that one? Oh, okay, whatever you want. And then you go and you don't enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
Yes. The eternal doormat kind of thing. Like, you know, just because even these little things sort of build up who we are. Right. I mean, and if we don't acknowledge that we don't want something or we don't like something, and we just pretend like we do, we're just taking ourselves down, just constantly taking ourselves down. That's the way I look at it. So, I don't even.
So it comes down to what it is we decide that we like and want.
Yeah. Right.
It comes down to what our preferences are. And here's a really interesting thing about preferences. It's something I learned early on, but I realized shortly after I realized it, that a lot of people don't understand this is true. They don't quite get that this is really, really important. And that is, everybody's preferences are different, and that's perfectly okay. I mean, I thought that was just blatantly obvious. And if you had been in a conversation with me 5 years ago, I would have treated it like it was blatantly obvious. But what I have since learned is it's not blatantly obvious to a lot of people. To a lot of people, the idea is almost, I don't know, heresy. I don't know how else to describe it. It's like, oh my God, how could you do that? That's their attitude. I'm thinking, really? I mean, you actually are trying to get everybody to want the same thing? Is that what you're trying to do? And the answer often is yes. The best example I can think of that is a political activist. They want everybody to think a certain way on a particular issue. Yeah. And until the world thinks that way, we're going to continue to have these problems. That's the belief. And they just don't seem to grasp that that's what creates the problems. It isn't the need to have everybody think the same way that's going to solve the problem. It's what creates the problem. You got to think the way I want you to think, or else we're going to be in a bad place. That's what creates the problem. Yeah. But they don't get that. They don't get that. Yeah. It's a really interesting thing.
Live and let live, been around for a long time, but yeah.
And it works well.
Not always.
Yeah. Well, a lot of it is a control issue too. Oh, sure. And, you know, the more people feel like they don't have control of their own lives, they want to control what other people think or what other people do. And it's really just gets back down to us.
Yep. And it also gets down to a sort of a level of personal dishonesty Because
That's it. Yeah,
what they're really
that's a
saying
good statement.
is, I can't fix myself. So therefore, the only fix is if you change yourself.
That's a good.
Which is, when you spell it out that way, it sounds really crazy, but nevertheless, that's what it adds up to. It's total insanity when you look at it that way. And
That's
yet people keep,
interesting.
like most insanity, people keep reproducing it, hoping they're going to get a different result. And they don't get a different result, but that doesn't stop them. They keep on going. Yeah, that's what happens when you come from a place of fear, of pain, of anger, of frustration, and then you start trying to impose it on somebody else. That's what that is. I'm going to impose my frustration on you, and I'm going to make sure you think the way that I want you to, or else.
So what do you think about when people feel like they are being controlled? What is your opinion on that?
Well, the first thing is, if somebody is expressing that to me, I won't necessarily tell them what I really think about it. I will tell them what they're asking about in direct answer to their questions, but I won't give an overall unless they tell me, give me an overall evaluation of what you think I'm doing here. I won't do it. I'll keep that to myself. But what am I thinking is going on? I'm thinking that it's their way of trying to be a controller. They don't think of it that way. They think they're the ones being controlled, but really they're trying to be the controller. Because being a controller, what that's all about is it's about trying to steal energy from somebody else instead of getting your own internal energy, having that internal connection and drawing upon that to fuel yourself. Instead, it's I've got to get somebody else's energy, otherwise I'm going to be exhausted and I'm going to be deprived, and so I will use whatever strategy I have to use in order to accomplish that goal of getting that energy from somebody else. And that's what controllers do. That's what control victims do, and that's what controllers do. They're both playing the same game. They're just playing it from different sides of the board, but it's the same game either way that you look at it. But I wouldn't say that to them directly. That just pisses people off.
Telling anybody anything pisses them off. If they're not it doesn't matter what it is. I mean, if they're not in the right space to hear it, it's like you can tell them that it's a beautiful day and they can get mad at
This
you.
is
So
true.
it's we just
Yeah.
The thing is we can make ourselves completely immune to things like sarcasm. And like me, sarcasm goes right. I have no radar for sarcasm. Mm-hmm. People can be so sarcastic to me, and then people I know will go, "Did you hear how they talked to you? What you mean? They asked me if I that no, they were rude to you. Really, were they?"
Louise had a great story to tell along that line from her younger years. She was working for, I think it was when she was working for this, I don't even know what to call it, a state-run institution for kids who were in the foster care system who were in trouble. So they had to go to this place to get special attention and treatment. It was basically halfway between a halfway house and a prison. It was not a really great place. But she was there in her therapy years before she became a psychotherapist, and it was sort of laying some of the groundwork for what she was going to do later on in life. Well, toward the end of her stay there, she was kind of getting burned out. She was getting ready to leave, and they changed directors, and the new director called her in to his office for something. I don't even know what it was. And he's sitting across the desk from her. It's one of these imposing desks where her chair is lower than his and all that kind of thing. The whole power trip thing. And he's sitting there with a knife in his hand, and he's picking at his fingernails with the knife.
God, really?
He's trying to intimidate her. And Louise, it went right past her. She had no idea that's what he was trying to do. So she thought it was just curious he was doing that and just skipped past it. So his entire power trip failed completely. And afterwards, her friends were saying the same thing to her. Didn't you realize that he was trying to intimidate you? Was he? Oh, yeah, I guess he was, wasn't he? And it didn't work. It failed completely because there was no connection.
There I go.
Janine just faded in absolute amazement at that one. Her entire image just fell over.
Mine would I would have said wow, that you could do that. I'd probably hurt myself if I did that. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, You keep a knife here? How do you do that?
Right.
Huh? How do you
Yeah,
do
that one
in
probably
here?
would have went over my head too.
You know, as we speak, it's really interesting, but I'm in my room here, and I call it my plant room, and now my LOA room. And I'm just watching outside as all these butterflies are just sort of amassing, and they're bumping into the window. It's really quite fascinating that I might not, I might come in here and not see a single one, and then as I'm talking to you guys, I just see them just amass. It's just like half a dozen of them out there. It's weird.
Beautiful.
That's nice, though. I mean,
I
if you're gonna have
know.
an image that appears, that's a good one. I
Right?
like that.
So
It reminds me of the story that Cindy Chavez tells. Have you guys heard the story about how Janine's trying to get her phone under control? The poor thing
it's
just
okay.
going all over the place.
It's kind of like being on a ride.
Yeah, right.
I'm just like, woo, woo, woo.
Okay, here comes the
Getting
dip in the
dizzy.
roller coaster. Ah!
Okay, I won't touch anything. So what was Cindy? You said Cindy?
Cindy Chavez tells a story about it's derived from the series that we did of the Pam Grout books, the E squared and E cubed books, and one of the experiments in one of those books. When she got to the experiment, it was one where you're supposed to pick something that you want to have happen within a 48-hour period. And so she decided that she was going to, in her words, have an owl. She likes owls. She's always liked owls. And she wanted to have an owl come to her in some way. Now, she admitted when she told the story the first time, and she's actually told it a few times, she admitted that she kind of expected that the owl was going to come in the form of like an image on a postcard or, a postage stamp or something like that, or somebody was going to hand her, some sort of a trinket that's got a picture of an owl on it. Because she lives in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. She lives in the middle of a city, so, an actual owl, that would be asking a little bit much, but she figured, well, there's probably some way for maybe somebody will use the word owl in a sentence or whatever. And anyway, within that 48-hour period, one day she was sitting at her office desk, and her office is kind of in like a wing of the house. It's got a lot of windows. There's a big window in front of her where she works. And she's sitting there working, and she hears this noise at the window, and she looks up, and there's this owl with a 4-foot wingspan flapping its wings against the window. And she said, oh my God. She calls out, Scott. She calls her husband. You got to see this.
Well, I think that's what trips us up is I want to see an owl, and I want to see it like this, and I want it to look like this. And it's just, instead of just like, I want to see an owl, show me the owl. How's it going to look? And this kind of reminds me of when my husband and I used to travel a lot, and we would just play these games, and inevitably it could be at the 11th hour, right before we would, like, okay, we want to see a person wearing this and this. And if it was this color, and inevitably after 2 weeks, we could be boarding the airplane and we'd finally see someone with this. And, and it was fun. It was just, so the trick is to put it out without being too specific. Like, I want to see it, in the morning, and I want it to look like this, and I want it to come and land on my nose or whatever, So it's just that's what I'm finding too. So it's like, I'd love to see butterflies and hear yellows and whites and oranges, and it's just crazy. The butterfly, sorry.
No, that's all right. It's perfectly legitimate. Yeah. It also reminds me of something that Monique Scott told me recently. She was on for a special appearance, and she made the point that did you? Okay, well, you may have heard. She talked about how she likes to be really specific. And we got into it, and we realized that the difference there is she can get really, really specific because she is 100% confident that it's going to come through.
Okay.
So it really comes down to how strongly do you believe it? If you don't believe it really, really, super strongly, then go for the general, because that way you can believe that easier. But if you can believe that the specific thing with the specific date, specific time, all that kind of stuff is actually going to happen, and you really do believe it without any doubt, go for it, because you'll get exactly what you're looking for.
Well, something like that.
So both viewpoints work. It just depends on where are you at. That's really what it comes down to.
Right. It was easier when it's like a game, just when you make it a game.
Right.
And then you can be like, for me, it's just specific. But when there's like some teeth in it, when you really want something to happen, for me, it's just, okay, let me just take a step back. I don't want to mess this up. I don't want to over wish it, overthink it, whatever, So
which has a little bit of a slightly DTS feel to
Yes.
it anyway. So it makes sense
Yes.
to go general at that point.
Yeah, got to go general, you know. It's my favorite place to be sometimes. Just, you know, especially when you're a little bit not high on your game and you're a little bit low, when you're not, you know, you're feeling a little sad, a little below neutral. It's always better, in my opinion, to just sort of take a back seat to specifics like today. Just, you know, I want to have a great time today. That was it.
By the way, Joe B, who's tuning in the live stream, he was reacting to what you were dealing with your phone. He says, "Hey, I'm truly enjoying the phone situation. I needed a laugh today. That was very quick reaction speed with the same as well."
I'm super, you know, it's really funny because I have a tendency when I'm on these like Zoom, you know, Zoom meetings or even for work, it would be always my phone that would blow up in some way or my computer that would do something really funky and people would laugh at me. It's like, okay, I'm okay with that. It's like, if I can help somebody.
Hey, I'm totally on board with that.
Yeah.
Bounce around.
That's why I've been doing the show all these years, because hey, if I can help somebody in the process of doing what I'm enjoying, so much the better. I love that. That's like a cherry on top. Oh, yeah. And if it doesn't happen, that's okay too. I'm still doing what I'm liking. So
Right.
It's so super cool.
Either way.
It's super cool that you do these like every day. I have no idea how you have the energy and the fortitude to do this every
I know a lot of people
day.
say that to me. Yeah, including people who've been co-hosting with me for quite some time. And I don't know how to explain it other than to say it's not an effort.
It's like, is it like therapy for you still?
Kind of. It can be therapy. Often it is therapy. A lot of it is just, I look forward to it as a vibe rise.
Yeah.
You know, I'm having kind of a tough day. Oh, good. The podcast is coming up.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, I mean, there's work I have to do associated with it. Every time we do a podcast, I have to publish it. It's like, you know, half hour's worth of work after we're done. And early on, that was a real chore. But after the first 100 or so, it's like, yeah.
After the first 100, I feel like
getting through the first 100 is the tough part. But then you get through it, and it doesn't even matter. It's kind of like the first time that you cooked a meal. The first time you cooked a meal, you sweated. Like, did I get the recipe right? You're checking everything. Oh, no, I burned the toast. Oh, no. And you're just going through all this stuff. No, now check back in 5 years later, you just cooked the meal. It's not a big
toast.
deal.
Yum. Oh, sorry.
Right, exactly. It's not the same feeling at all. It's a completely different feeling.
Yeah, I get it. That's awesome.
Yeah, and that's where it's gotten to for me. I mean, I have to do a little extra work at the end of the show, but I don't care. It's no worse than doing the dishes. Actually, I like doing the dishes now.
Yeah, I was going to say, we like them.
Yeah. I mean, it's all how you look at it, really. But
what do you do to go neutral, Ginny? Like we do the dish times.
Oh, you mean like what's my like
if
no
we're down the
thought?
spiral? Yeah.
Right. What's like my low thought
Right.
activity that almost hands down it's watering. It's just
Really?
And here living in Phoenix, I think we're turning more like we're getting so much rain. I think we've had more rain in the last month than we have in the last 3 years, and that's not a joke. That's really not a joke. That I hardly water anymore. So I other low thoughts, like I can sew, I can work on my plants inside if it's raining. It's really humid and I love it. I really love it, but I don't have that watering. Raking. Sometimes I'll just like get in the dirt and pull weeds. I mean, just it's really okay. I'm DTS. Well, yesterday it's weird because I must have been DTS because I woke up, went in the kitchen to make coffee, standing there, and I'm like, oh, I look down and my feet are just covered in ants. I'm like, we have had so much rain that I've had like an ant problem. So I've spent the whole day, you know, there we go, fighting with ants, right? So bringing it on, I don't know, trying not to get that stinging vibration going on, the being, you know, and that's it. Acknowledging that we're kind of lower on our vibe and yet being okay with it and not feeding into that, because it's like, now I have the ants and now I have to do this and just, okay, I have ants. Let me deal with the ants. It is what it is. Just stay with it. And then I went to help my grandmother and just stay with it, you know, just, and so that's really what I do. Also is if I find that I can't do a low thought activity, I just, I just try to keep my cork floating naturally. I try not to feed it. Right.
Yeah.
I like the example of the weeding because it reminded me of a situation with one of our gardeners it's a guy who's actually not with us in the company anymore. He moved on, but he once was describing to me why he liked weeding. Now, I've never been somebody who liked gardening. I know how to run the business, but you really don't want me anywhere near the garden. I have the black thumb of the family, so this is just very straightforward. No, you can laugh all you want. I get lots of customers that way just by telling that line to new customers. It works beautifully. But anyway, he loves pulling the weeds, and I asked him, why do you love it so much? And he says, well, it's because I sing a song to myself. I said, what song do you sing? He says he sang that song from Queen. Another one bites the dust. Pulls a weed. Another one bites the dust. Another one bites the dust. Another one bites the dust.
Oh my gosh, if I said that, it would be like overwhelming. It would be like it would be Mickey Mouse dealing with the in the Fantasia with the
oh yeah,
be like
one
water,
after right.
Everywhere I turn around there's a weed. I just try to incorporate the weeds into my yard in some capacity, to make it look like, okay, I don't want that weed, so I'll pull it, but this weed, it doesn't add anything except beauty. And so and that's how
Some people like certain weeds. Yeah.
Right. Right. Because, they grow up through, some of them look nice when they grow up through your walking stones. And I do almost everything. The only thing that my landscapers do is mow and blow, but everything else I really try to do by myself. And so instead of looking at the weeds as, oh my gosh, because if I was like, another one bites the dust, man, I would be like, holy crap. They're not dying. They're reincarnating and they're coming after me. So I just like, you know what? I look at it and I'm like, these are beautiful. Oh, they're so beautiful. Look at that. They come up between they're beautiful. Oh, I don't like that one, yank. Oh, but this one's pretty and that one's pretty. Oh, I don't like that one, yank. And then because if I was like that, I used to be like weed OCD, and that will bring me down faster than anything is to get caught up in something that I can't.
Yeah.
And I think it's called Ruella, a Mexican Ruella. It's like a Mexican petunia that grows really well here. You just give it some water. And when I first moved in with my husband, it was it was in certain places, and it's a weed. It grows like a weed, and I just kept pulling it. But after a while, I just let it go. And oh my gosh, the yard is this beautiful purple flowers just growing, and it just ties the whole yard together. And it's just sort of, step back and relax. It's like, we're not going to be.
There are a number of flowers like that. Flowers that were previously considered weeds, and people liked them so much they became, in people's minds, flowers, desired plants to be put into the garden. Daisies are an excellent example of that. Daisies will take over your garden, but people like daisies, so some of them want the daisies to take over their garden. They actually like that.
And that's like in kind of incorporating what the I don't want to say negative, but the sort of our transgressor or things that bother us, sort of just accepting that they're there. And, I can't do that with the ants. I just can't. I cannot share my kitchen with the biting ants. I just, one
day you're going to find a way to start appreciating them. And when you do, the ants are going to go away. And then you'll be telling us a wonderful story. But that's okay.
You're right. You're right. I'm just not there yet.
Yeah, it just takes time sometimes.
It hurts when they're biting you.
Oh, yeah. That doesn't feel so good.
I just make stories up in my head. I'm like, okay, I just wasn't ready for that coffee yet. I wasn't supposed to have that coffee yet.
Oh, good.
Like, things were there for a reason.
Good point. Good point.
I just make shit up in my head.
No, that's good. You tell yourself good stories. And see, I'm a big story make in my head. I'll blow stuff up. I'll make stories. He looked at me strangely. He must be angry at me. And I would invent these stories. And now I realize I'm a master storyteller.
Absolutely you are. Yes.
And it's like, I can't get in somebody's head. They looked at me weird. What does that mean? They just looked at me weird. Maybe they were thinking of their grocery list. I don't know. And so it's just like, it's kind of like the weeds. You just detune it. You just, not care about what other people are thinking or what they think of you or what they, I just can't get over the ants right now. Okay. I just can't.
It's all right. Perfectly acceptable.
They're conspiring on how to get into my house. I have to have something to fight right now. I'm just teasing. I'll get over it.
There's always something.
It was probably Bill Gates' problem.
No,
Bill Gates sent these ants to my kitchen.
No, it's all good. It's but it's cool because I'm really confident in my ant killing ability, and so I have my own little like what I do when this happens, and I'm very efficient. It used to take me all day, and now it takes me like an hour or so to go and clean up everything and whatever. But yeah,
one of the fun things that happens is when you learn to apply that storytelling ability in a different way with the situation. And I'm sure you've already done this. We all have done this one way or another, but we find ourselves telling that same story. It doesn't matter which one it is, a story about something that's negative. And so we're telling that negative story over and over again. And then one day we stumble upon a positive spin on the story, and we tell that positive spin, and all of a sudden the situation changes.
You're right. And Bridge, you're like a fantastic pivoter.
Yeah,
no, you're a fantastic pivoter. I mean, because you'd be like, well, maybe you just need to go on a walk and not drink coffee right now, or maybe.
Yeah, I always make an excuse for it. I'm like, oh, that was just because of that.
But
that's just because of that, and it's working out for my benefit.
Right. Is it pivoting, or is it an excuse, or is it just pivoting? Is it just moving in a different direction? Is it telling yourself a different story? And obviously you are just like queen of that. So thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
You're a master and you didn't know it.
I know, right? Thank you.
Holy cow. A master is among us.
Oh yes, we're all masters in our own way, except of the ants. But
the ants are also masters. I have to point this out to you.
And there's more of them.
There are.
I think peppermint oil is what I used when we had ants. Peppermint oil. If you have that, yeah.
I'll check that out.
So these days you can go on Google and you can find all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
It's not like it was 30 years ago where you basically were left to calling your mother-in-law or whatever to find out. Now it's just like, what does the world have to tell me? Go to YouTube. All right. Hey.
Yeah. Very true.
That's such a nice thing.
This show has brought me so far back up. I have no pain anymore. I mean, I had a headache and I very rarely spend any time in pain anymore. It's just I'm been able to detune a lot of that. And just by being on this show with you guys, I've like completely detuned that. And it feels so much better. Thank you.
Oh, thank you guys. I feel the exact same.
So now you know why I do the show.
Yeah, that's so cool.
That's it right there. You just did it. You just experienced that's the addiction. And the best part is there is no rehab. You will never be required to sit in group and find a way to detune this. It's a perfectly acceptable form of addiction.
That's right.
So, well, thank you for sharing. Thank you for being willing to share what's been going on and what your thought process is, because you are a master storyteller. You both are.
Thank you.
And I feel very privileged to have both of you on the show. Thank you for becoming co-hosts. Thank you for sharing your story with the masses who are now tuning in, sending in emails.
I hope that was awesome. Help. Yeah, I hope it can really help other people because, I like to live my life in servitude, not doormat servitude. Okay, but to uplifting servitude, and that just makes. Of course, there's a little bit of ego. I mean, we're humans. Sure, we have egos, fun. But it's fun. But the other day when after our show, I think I think if you might have read this, Walt, on or said this during our meeting, our Taya Bootcamp meeting. But you said that a woman had wrote in thanking you for your show, that you made her, that. Thank you for something like you had this show and it really raised her up. And I thought, that is super. It is. That's really super.
And it's a wonderful bonus. And that it's one of the reasons why I've been saying for years now, I love every one of my listeners because, man, they just bring me all kinds of joy, including having new co-hosts who are among the listeners. I love it.
Yay.
It's like, this is the
Yes.
best possible world. It's a great thing. So
Well,
thank you guys very much.
Is it Linda that brought in Neville Goddard? You guys were talking about Neville Goddard, one of the Neville Goddard books. That's how I got in. Was it Linda or was it Cindy?
Cindy and I did
right.
the Neville series. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's when I started listening was, oh, wow, this is an interesting podcast. Oh, this book. And of course, then I started reading all of his books, and so you got me involved and that's how I started. That's how I came to this. But I think that we're always drawn, right? I think we're always led. We're led. And I was led to this podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Beautiful thing. All right. Well, I'm looking forward to find out what we're going to be led to next week. So we'll see.
Yeah, maybe your ants will be gone. We'll find out.
And then will you have a story
Maybe I'll be
to
the
tell?
queen of the ants.
Okay. This is good.
I love it.
Next week, will
Yes.
she or won't she
Dun,
be the
dun,
queen
dun.
of the ants?
Take care.
In our next podcast, brought to you by Tide. No, that's anyway, we'll see you all next time here on
Bye,
LA
guys.
Today. Goodbye.
Bye, guys.